Hey everyone, welcome to the session today. My name is Rob from Re-Ambition Coaching, and today I'm going to talk a little bit about developing self-confidence. So Blake Lively once said, the most beautiful thing you can wear is confidence. So now, what is confidence though? So confidence is a very loose term, and I often have people coming to me saying they lack self-confidence. But the question is really, in what area do you lack self-confidence? We all have confidence in certain areas of our lives, areas where we do feel confident. And if we look at those areas and we analyze why we are confident in those areas, it's because they are familiar to us. It's because we have practiced and we are able to easily perform those tasks. In other words, confidence is a skill that we can learn, and it's closely related to competence. And the more competent we are in an area, the more confident we are in that area. So for example, if you have been driving a car for years, you probably feel very confident in your driving ability. Now, that confidence can also be broken if, for example, you have a bad accident. So you begin to doubt your competence, and with that, your level of confidence reduces. So in short, confidence equals competence and vice versa. Another area that is often confused is self-esteem and self-confidence. And often we assume these two are linked in the same thing. And in some instances they are linked, but this is not necessarily true in all cases. So let me explain. So self-esteem can be described as how you feel about yourself and is related to your level of self-worth that you hold for yourself. And confidence, as we already discussed, is closely related to your competence level in a certain area. It is true that often a person that has low self-esteem has low confidence, but that is because they don't believe in their ability to learn and become confident. It's also true that this is also not always the case. Let's use the car example again. You may have low self-esteem and not think highly of yourself, but you may be a very competent and confident driver. Is it making sense what I'm saying? Now, I already spoke about the fact that all of us have confidence in certain areas of our life, and that the term lack of confidence is a very loose term. So the first step we need to take is to identify the areas where we are not very confident and get very specific about them. So for example, I'm pretty sure you're all quite confident when it comes to talking to your mother or your best friend, but you may be less confident when you are approaching a girl or a guy to ask them out on a date or something, right? Or maybe it's talking to your boss, or possibly even having to talk to a stranger at a networking event or a social event. So you need to figure out in what specific area of your life are you feeling that you are not confident, and be very specific about this. Is it a specific person? Is it a situation? Is it a place? The more specific you can get, the better you can address your level of confidence in that area. The next thing you need to ask yourself is, what would a confident person look like in that situation? What would they be saying or doing? How would they hold themselves? You need to get an understanding of what being confident in that situation looks like specifically for you. Everyone is unique and different, and everyone has a different view of what being confident in a situation looks like for them. My view will be different to your view. Then finally, ask yourself, what is it that you would need to learn to be confident in that situation, given that you now know what it looks like to be confident in that situation and what you feel like in that situation. A great tool that can help you move forward and give you a bit of a boost is to list your assets and strengths. So we are all good at something and we all excel at something. So what are those things? Where have you done well in your life? What have you achieved? How have you helped people? What are your greatest strengths? Make a list of all of this stuff. It's a nice booster, and it helps you to remember that there are areas in your life that you are confident. Now, to really be able to embrace the fact that we can learn to be confident, we need to understand what a growth mindset is. And you may have heard this term growth mindset being bandied about, but what does it really mean? In its simplest form, a person with a growth mindset believes that intelligence and talent are dynamic. In other words, we can increase our intelligence and talent and can develop it with practice over time. A fixed mindset person believes that we are born with a certain level of intelligence and talent and that this can never change. So it's static. You either have it or not, born with it or not. So developing a growth mindset removes the internal limits and blocks that we place on ourselves, and it allows us to move to a place where we can achieve what we want. We stop holding ourselves back. It's a hugely important and critical to approach building confidence with a growth mindset. Now that we know why it's important to approach confidence with a growth mindset, it's time to look at what holds us back. And one of the biggest areas here is self-doubt. And it's interesting how we develop self-doubt. Whenever we feel uncertain about something or are anxious about something, our unconscious mind wants to protect us and prevents us from taking action. How does it do this? Well, first we start to overthink. You start thinking about all the things that could go wrong. You could be embarrassed, you could be disappointed, feel uncomfortable, feel not good enough, you name it. You then don't take action, which makes you doubt your ability to take action in the first place. And then because you didn't take action, you weren't successful and didn't get a result. So you basically proved to yourself that you cannot do it. And ta-da, there we have it, self-doubt. And then this cycle then repeats over and over again. So the next time you're in the same situation, you go back and you remember the past situation, you go, oh, I couldn't do it then. Why the hell would I be able to do it now? So why do we even bother trying? Now, the good news is self-doubt is a habit you can break. And to be able to do that, it is good to understand the 4 traps of self-doubt. And the first one is we hesitate. We make sure we are always too busy to actually do what it is we need to do. And we use perfectionism as an excuse. You tell yourself a story of all the things that can go wrong. You need it to be perfect before you put it out there. And to overcome this, the easiest way to do that is to take baby steps. So break down what you need to do into smaller steps that you can take a small step each day towards your goal. Now, there's a great tool I'll talk about later called the exposure ladder that can help with this. Now, the next step or next trap of self-doubt is hiding. And this is generally triggered by our fear of what others will think of us and overwhelm. So you hide quietly in a corner, hoping no one notices you. You procrastinate and you find excuses why other things are more important to do. This often happens when we have a dream that is too big and it's too overwhelming. And the funny part is we often make this dream that big and overwhelming because if it's impossible to achieve, we don't need to act. And if we don't act, we can't fail, right? So with this one, you really need to understand what your actual fear is that causes you not to act and address that directly. Then it's a case of taking that big dream and chunking it down to smaller, more manageable, less overwhelming steps that you can take or address one at a time. Right. The third trap is our fear of being disappointed, hurt, or failing. We become hypercritical of ourselves and we focus in only on our flaws. We fixate on what can go wrong. We will always find an excuse why something won't work. We are focused, it's very much problem focused and not solution focused. Everything is impossible. Generally, a hypercritical person is seen to be very negative, and you'll see them in the room. It's the person that is always negative, never has a solution, right? And if this is you, the way you can overcome this is to make a deal with yourself and to commit to a decision for a certain period of time. So tell yourself that you will try to do whatever it is you want to do for a certain period of time. Then if it doesn't work, you can go back to what you were doing. Now, the trick here is obviously not to just try once, right? It is to keep trying repeatedly until you get there. So you can't just go, oh, I failed and now I'm not going to do it again. Just keep repeating it, right? It's a process we have to go through. The final trap is playing the victim. The world is all woe and mayhem and it's against us. There's every excuse in the book why we can't do it because of some external factor or some person or something that is to blame. We depend on others to achieve our success. The world owes us something. You always want someone else to do it for you, and you take no responsibility at all for your own life or the results you get. And I think you get the picture, right? And helplessness is probably the trap that is the hardest for us to overcome. And it's also one of the most complicated to address. Admitting to it is the biggest step you can take to overcome this. So to overcome this, you need to look at ways to develop self-love. So how do you do this? Figure out what you enjoy, okay, and what relaxes you, and do more of that. Schedule time in for yourself every day and every week, and make sure that you stick to that schedule and do that and develop that self-love for yourself, right? The next thing is to identify in what areas you are displaying helplessness and what you need to believe for that to be true. Then look at what it is you are really afraid of that prevents you from taking responsibility. And then take a look at what reality you are creating for yourself by keeping this helplessness here. What are you going to look like in 6 months, 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, if you don't start helping yourself and get rid of the victim mentality? Once you understand what is happening, set yourself a small goal to next time do it yourself. And if there's a person you always rely on, tell them that you don't want them to help you the next time. And find a way to remind yourself that you will do it yourself next time. And remember, don't take too big a step. Start with something small and start building yourself up. So now that we've talked about what confidence is, the importance of a growth mindset, and the traps of self-doubt, let's get into how we can build our self-confidence pretty quickly. So the first one is competence, building competence. If confidence and competence are linked, then it makes sense that the first step is to become more competent. And for this, you need to understand what confidence looks like for you and what you need to develop that self-confidence in that situation. And once you have an understanding of that, what aspects of this can you already do? Then ask yourself which areas are just outside of your current abilities right now, but you can address very quickly and easily. These are the areas you want to start developing and working on. The next thing you want to ask yourself is what areas are completely out of reach of my current abilities. So these are the areas that are going to take more work and can be addressed later after you've developed the areas just outside of your abilities. For example, let's use driving again. You didn't have your first lesson on the freeway. Well, maybe you did in very rare occasions, but in general, you wouldn't have your first lesson on a freeway. So you probably started in a parking lot or a yard and then moved onto the road and into traffic. And finally, as you became more competent and got more confident, you got onto the freeway. The same theory applies here. Build yourself up to the bigger things. The next step is taking action. Now, taking action is a critical part of building competence, as without practice, you will not develop the competence and thus you won't develop the confidence. A nice tool to help you take action here is the 5-second rule. Now, how does this work? Well, when you're faced with a task or you're anxious about something, give yourself a 5-second countdown. It's very important that it's a countdown because a countdown has an end. So it ends at 0. You can't go to 6, 7, 8 as an excuse, right? So here's how it works. So 5, I get up. 4, I start walking. 3, I pull my shoulders back. 2, I smile. And 1, I introduce myself. The next time you're stuck, try it for yourself. Next thing we need to look at is overcoming our fear. So I've mentioned anxiety and fear a few times already, and it's probably the most common reason for us not acting. We fear being embarrassed or judged, or we fear what people will think, or in disappointing others or ourselves, or feeling not good enough. And our unconscious is programmed to protect us. So when we fear something, it stops us in our tracks using any possible tactic it can. Overthinking, making excuses, doing absolutely anything else. And often this fear is irrational, and there's no imminent danger of being eaten by a lion or a saber-toothed tiger, or being killed. In 99.9% of cases, it's psychological. And this fear places us in no danger. Our unconscious mind doesn't see it this way, though, and acts similarly in both instances. And there are 2 great tools that can help you overcome fear. The first one is fear setting, and the other one I mentioned before is the exposure ladder. So let's talk a little bit about fear setting. This was a tool introduced by the writer of the 4-Hour Workweek, Tim Ferriss. And it's a very simple yet very effective tool to use. So when we understand our fear, we can more easily overcome it. And sometimes when we write things down, we take the edge off them. So take a piece of paper and divide it into 3 columns. In the first column, write define. In the second column, write prevent. And in the third column, write prepare. And in the first column, you're going to define the fear. So what is the fear? What is it that you fear? In the second column, you're going to write down what you could do to prevent the situation from happening in the first place, or at least minimize the effect of it should it happen. And finally, in the third column, you're going to write down what you could do to repair the situation if it does happen. So for example, definition. I'm afraid of talking to people at social events as I'm scared they will judge and laugh at me. So how could you prevent that? I could prepare topics for discussion up front. I could research topics of interest that I can talk about. And how would you repair it if it did happen? So if people do laugh at me, which is firstly highly unlikely, I will just laugh with them and laugh at myself and break the ice. Right? That's fear setting. Great tool to use. The next one is the exposure ladder. Now take another piece of paper and list down all the small steps you can take to reach your big goal. The baby steps you need to take. Now place those in order from bottom to top, like you're climbing your ladder, with the easiest and least intimidating one at the bottom, and the hardest and most intimidating one at the top of the ladder. Then each time you've taken a step, move to the next one, and so forth. And the 5-second rule is a great addition to this, and you can use it to ensure you take action for each next step. An exposure ladder, for example, may look something like this. At the bottom, I will make eye contact. Next step, I will smile at the person. Next step, I'll wave at them. Next step, I'll go and introduce myself. Next step, and I will tell them a story, and so it goes on. Right? So now you don't have to take these steps all in one go. So one day you could say, well, I'll make eye contact. And when I'm comfortable making eye contact, I'll move on to the next step, and then I'll make eye contact and I'll smile at the person, right? Until I get to where I want to go, which is actually approaching the person and telling them a story, right? Or whatever my end goal is. Now let's talk a little bit about the person that is the most judgmental and critical and sometimes the nastiest piece of work we have ever come across. Our own self-talk, our little inner critic. Yes, we are often our own worst enemy, and we are often the ones telling ourselves that what we can and can't do. We are the ones telling ourselves that the worst will happen if you don't do X or Y. An interesting fact is that over 80% of our thoughts in a day are negative. And that's not good if you understand how we work. So, in short, when something happens, we interpret that situation, and we have a thought about it. Right? Then, from that thought, we decide which emotion suits that situation in thought, and our brain releases chemicals accordingly. We then act and we get a result, which can either be good or bad, depending on what the thought was. So essentially, our thoughts become our emotions, which in turn become the results that we get. So then it makes sense that we need to control and limit our negative self-talk. And to do that, we need to start practicing being conscious and being mindful. We need to become conscious of these thoughts to catch them and then to change them to something more empowering and positive. So how do we do this? So one way of doing this is to reframe our perspective of what is actually happening. We need to look at the situation from a different angle and ask ourselves questions like, what could I be assuming about this situation to be true? Is it true in the first place? How can I look at this situation differently to make it better? What positives can I find in this situation? So by reframing the situation to a more positive one, we take away the power from our negative self-talk and start training ourselves to become more optimistic. Right? The next one is affirmations. So another way of addressing negative self-talk is through affirmations and incantations. I know it sounds woohoo, but they really do work. An affirmation is basically a short positive statement that when we consistently practice it, we rewire our thoughts and beliefs. They are more empowering thoughts than the 80% negative thoughts that we have running through our mind. So how do you create a positive affirmation? Well, you think of a negative thought or a belief that you have regularly and restate it in a more positive way. So to ensure that the affirmation is successful, let's make sure that it's very believable, it's in your control, it must be stated in the present, it must be personal, so I am, and it must be positive. You must also be able to feel it when you say it out loud, and you need to repeat it regularly, 3 to 5 times per day for the next 21 days at minimum. And to turn this affirmation into an incantation is really easy. All you need to do is add a power move to it. So for example, I don't know, a Superman pose. So this makes the affirmation even more powerful as your physical state affects your emotional state and vice versa. And that's a story for another time. The next tool you can use is visualization. So believe me or don't believe me, but your unconscious mind does not know the difference between reality and the imagined. If you don't believe me, close your eyes for a second and imagine that I've come to visit, and you hear a knock on the door, and I've brought along a big bag of lemons, and I take them into your kitchen, and I'll start cutting them up on your kitchen counter, big and juicy. And the juice is running out of them, and you see the juice flowing out of them onto the cutting board. I take one of the pieces that I've cut and I hand you a piece, and you slowly put it in your mouth and you bite into it. Are you salivating yet? So there are many scientifically proven tests that have been conducted, many of them with athletes, that prove how effective visualization is. So being true, if you can visualize an event or situation vividly enough beforehand, your mind will think you've already done it. I know it sounds strange, but give it a go. To visualize a situation, really put yourself in there. Imagine what you're doing. What are you saying? How are you standing? What's your body language? Who is there? What are they saying? How are you feeling? What do you see around you? How are the other people reacting to you? Make it really, really vivid and real. And just take a couple of minutes every day and close your eyes and imagine it all happening over and over again. Right? In time, your mind will believe that you've done this a few times. So if you have a problem approaching strangers and talking to them, by vividly imagining this, it'll start to feel like you've done this 100 times or a couple of times before you actually really go and do it, making it a lot easier, right? Now, this last tool is my gift to you, a confidence anchor. So first, let's start with what is an anchor? Well, think about your favorite song right now. How does that make you feel? What memories does it bring up? That's basically an anchor. Think about when you walk into a house and you smell someone cooking something that your mother used to make. What memories does that bring up for you? That's an anchor. So an anchor can be a smell or a sound or a touch that whenever you're exposed to it, it brings back memories. So sometimes an anchor can bring back good memories as well as bad memories, like a trauma, right? But I digress. So the point is, an anchor can also be created and can be triggered anytime you want. So are you ready to create a confidence anchor that you can use anytime that you like? Here goes, let's do it, right? So before we start, we need to decide on an anchor point. So let's make it, let's see, do this. You can put your pinky finger to the furthest point on your palm. Now, each time I tell you, I want you to touch that exact same point with your pinky finger like this. And as soon as you feel that feeling peaking inside of you, I want you to release it, right? Just like this. So, oh, I'm feeling peaking and I'm going to release it. Okay, so let's go for it. So make sure you are sitting somewhere very relaxed and very comfortable. If it makes you more comfortable and you find it easier, you can close your eyes. Okay, so let's start. Take a deep breath in for 1, 2, 3, 4, and breathe out for 4, 3, 2, 1. And again, breathe in 1, 2, 3, 4, and out for 4, 3, 2, 1. One more time, breathe in 1, 2, 3, 4, and out 4, 3, 2, 1. Now, can you remember a time when you felt really powerful? Remember? Put your pinky on your palm. Can you remember a time when you felt really powerful? Can you remember a specific time? As you go back to that time now, go right back to that time and float back into your body and relive it again now. See what you saw, hear what you heard, and notice what you noticed. Really feel that feeling now of being totally, really powerful. When you feel that feeling starting to peak, release your pinky. Okay, now open your eyes quickly, take a look around the room. What do you notice in the room? Okay, let's go again. Close your eyes. Pinky on the anchor point. Can you remember a time when you felt utterly loved? Can you remember a specific time? As you go back to that time now, go right back to that time and float back into your body and relive it again now. See what you saw, hear what you heard, and notice what you noticed. Really feel that feeling now of being totally and utterly loved. As you feel that feeling peak, release your pinky. Okay, open your eyes. Take a look around the room again. Anything you noticed this time that you didn't notice the last time? Okay. Close your eyes, pinky back onto the anchor point. Now, can you remember a time when you felt totally engaged? Can you remember a specific time? As you go back to that time now, go right back to that time and float back into your body and relive it again now. See what you saw, hear what you heard, and notice what you noticed. Really feel that feeling now of being totally engaged. As you feel that feeling peak, release your pinky from the anchor point. Okay, open your eyes again. Take a look around the room. Shake your body a little bit. Wake yourself up. Okay. Let's close your eyes again. Pinky on the anchor point. Can you remember a time when you felt totally confident? Can you remember a specific time? As you go back to that time now, go right back to that time and float back into your body and relive that time again now. See what you saw, hear what you heard, and notice what you noticed. Really feel that feeling now of being totally confident. And as you feel that feeling peak, remove your pinky from the anchor point. Okay, open eyes again. Shake your head about. Wave your hands. Wake yourself up again. Okay, are you awake? Cool. Close your eyes again. Pinky on the anchor point. Can you remember a time when you felt so happy you could fall down laughing? Can you remember a specific time? As you go back to that time, now, go right back to that time and float back into your body and relive it again now. See what you saw, hear what you heard, and notice what you noticed. Really feel that feeling now of being totally happy to the point of that you could fall down laughing. And when you feel that feeling peak, release your pinky. Okay, open your eyes. Great work, everyone. Now shake yourself around a bit and look around the room again. Notice anything else that you might have not noticed the last couple of times you looked around the room. So now what I want you to do is to trigger that anchor, right? So basically, just put your pinky back. How do you feel different? So anchors become stronger the more they are triggered and activated. So for the next couple of days, trigger your anchor. Now you can use this anchor to change your mood and also give you confidence in situations. So maybe you're not feeling very confident about doing a presentation or going to approach a stranger or whatever. Use your confidence anchor, and you can use it to simply just, as I mentioned, change your mood if you want to, right? It's yours. It's my gift to you. So I hope you found today's mini workshop useful and you picked up some tips that will help you unleash your self-confidence. And at Reambition, I do have a package that addresses confidence extensively, where we do a full confidence assessment to figure out specific areas of low confidence, and then we go through a process to specifically address those areas, right? And if you'd like to find out more information you can find it on my website at www.reambition-coaching.co.za, or simply leave me a comment and I'll get back to you. I'll also post the link below, and that should make it easier for you, right? So if you enjoyed the session, please leave me a comment and give me a like and a share. And thank you everyone for joining today and taking the time to listen to me. And I hope you all enjoy your newfound confidence and find your anchor useful. Cheers. To find out more about Reambition Coaching, visit our website at www.reambition-coaching.co.za, or like and follow our Facebook page at www.facebook.com/Reambition Coaching.